Okay, on this episode of Talking Taiwan, I'm happy to welcome back THC. Welcome to the podcast, TH.
Yes, glad to be back as well.
Yeah, it's been a while. The last time we had you on, we were talking about civil defense and the war. Russia's invasion of Ukraine had just happened, and people were really concerned about civil defense. And it's hard to believe, but a year has passed since the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And so I thought maybe we could start a little bit about talking about some reflections of what's happened since then. I do know that on March 3rd, you did a talk for New Bloom magazine about what lessons Taiwan could take from what's happened in Ukraine. I'm sure it's hard to
Yeah.
summarize, but could you highlight some
Yeah, sure.
things maybe you'd like to share with my audience?
Well, I'm glad to. I think because well, a year has passed, just like Felicia has said, that I think the status of civil defense is pretty much on the change because of people feel that the threat is coming in. But I think for last year, because of the war lasted for the war in Ukraine, it will last even longer than a year, right? So now here in Taiwan, most of the people are back to their normal life. On the other side, I think the government has some plans to get Taiwan to be prepared. So there's a long list of action items to do. On the other side, because most of us are civilians, so we do. I think the general population here, or those who cared about this threat, long-term threat, they are much better prepared than before. But having said that, it's still not I would say it's not still on the priority list of a lot of people because when it's the disaster is not there yet, visible part of that is not there yet. But you see that there are a lot of emerging groups coming out. They get a lot of attention. And at the same time, the military had some reform plans as well concerning civil defense because the armed forces is really quite a big part of defense for Taiwan. So the military has tried to establish an interface for the military and the civil society. I get some training for the new conscripts. So it will start rolling out next year, 2024. I'll see that as a good thing. So that's the general trend right here with a lot of more details anyway.
I thought I heard that they were going to lengthen the time of military service. Has that been finalized?
Well, it's been finalized. It's announced
Yeah.
earlier this year. So the
Hmm.
conscription will be
Okay.
extended to a full year. Back it was
Right.
3 years, and then cut it down to 2 years, and then it will be extended to a full year. Yeah, so it's which is much
Right.
better.
Yeah. Okay. And then I've also been hearing that there's been a lot of proposed changes to what's called Taiwan's Mobilization Act, including like two items that was widely reported in the news that the government could take control of the media during wartime, and the second would be to mobilize people from the age of 16 years old and above to.
Well, I think that for that part is a bit intriguing because the law exists there for many decades. It is
Mhm.
a legacy of a martial law era, but it's
Yes,
not really practiced. It's not executed at all because you're facing. But the way the government mobilized the society was way different before than now because
right.
well we're pretty much under martial law. So when the MND says we want to do this, and everybody has to go that way. But now is Taiwan is a democratic society. You cannot do that anymore. So there need to be a little bit tweaks in existing laws and draft. So the MND proposed a draft version of that at the very bad timing because they proposed it a week for public consultation, a week before the 228 massacre anniversary, which is probably it was probably the worst
Sensitive.
time you could. Yeah, so
It's a
it
sensitive
got
time.
just way too sensitive. It got backfired a lot. Bad timing, really bad timing. Sometimes you
Yeah,
really need to care about. Yes, we do have a historical context. Yeah.
yeah, that's a
So
very good
that's
point.
basically get backfired. And now the government says, oh, we'll work on that, but not that fast, not that soon, because it's a president election this year is coming in. Yes, with less than a year. So
Hmm.
it's quite when you mess up with a thing like that, it's hard to bring it back, even though it's
Yeah.
probably required. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And is there anything else specifically you think that Taiwan can take away from what Ukraine is going through in dealing
Hmm.
with the invasion by Russia?
Well, I think the first is you need the civil society, the whole society is you need to develop a whole society approach to protect yourself. And armed force is only part of the equation. You
Hmm.
need a society, you need the middle class to start that. So I think that's also the lesson we've learned because you need the middle class to support preparation, to donate, to invest, yeah, to vote,
Hmm.
yeah, for
Hmm.
certain
Hmm.
reforms in the military.
Hmm.
So that's a big lesson we learn. It's not just the armed forces, it's not just missiles and weapons and ships there. So then we have a role to play as a civilian here. So that's a big thing to learn. And second thing that I think for Taiwan, people now realize much better than before. You need allies very much. So we're seeing in the news that while the U.S. and Taiwan, both governments are discussing ways to enhance our training standards by bringing U.S. Personnel coming to Taiwan, starting from the around maybe this mid-year. So there will be 200 and 300 like U.S. active duty military personnel coming to Taiwan to support training. That's a good
Hmm.
thing. We haven't seen that for decades or after 1979. Yes. So
Right, right,
you
right.
need a good training, and the training you
Yes.
have to do that with your allies because you need
Hmm.
to talk to each
Hmm.
other. You need to collaborate with each other. So you need to know each other's capacity. You need to build an interface and make it permanent as persistent. Yes, you can't just
Yeah.
everybody call for help and then they will come or you will go there. It's not going to work like that way. So that's another big lesson we've learned, and also the civil society as well, because we do have almost like 1 million foreigners living in Taiwan right now.
Hmm.
So you need to take care, talk to those who are coming from Japan. Yeah. So the people in Japan, they're like in Ukraine, they they're receiving a lot of support and disaster relief from Poland or NATO member countries. So I think it's last year around this time we focused more on internal preparedness, but now it's a little bit shifted to establish trust between partners and build those platforms, engage with these partners as well. It's also a big lesson for us. Yes.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. That's an interesting point because that should be leveraged. The foreigners here, especially if they're from countries that have that are Taiwan's allies, or um, so it's a natural bridge. That's a good point.
And then
Yeah.
people say that it's not a Taiwan problem anymore. It's a regional problem. It's a world problem because
Hmm.
like submarine cables cut around Taiwan. It's going to affect a lot of people from Japan to Singapore.
Yes, I wanted to talk to you about that too because it's sort of related, right? Because also in the news, the submarine internet cables between Matsu and the main island of Taiwan were cut and people lost internet connection. And I understand that it's like something like the 25th time in like 5 years,
Yeah, in
or
five
what
years
is it?
is very
Yeah,
it,
high frequency.
it shouldn't be like that. It just shouldn't be like that. Yeah.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
while it broke out in the news, a lot of Western media, so people care about this as well. But I think we first as a citizen of mainland Taiwan, we sensed that because two cables were cut, and before those two cables were cut, uh, actually early this year, uh, submarine cables connecting Vietnam to the world, they have
Mm-hmm.
five, and four got
Oh,
cut as well.
oh dear.
Prior to the event happened in Mazu.
Hmm.
So this region we're seeing a lot of disruptions, and that's why it's all the cable ships are fully booked to repair those cables in Vietnam. So they couldn't come to Taiwan on time.
Oh, I
So
see.
people there, they have to wait 2 or 3 months to get their internet back.
Oh, was it that long? Wow. So what
Yes,
so what did people do in the meantime? And so this is a good exercise and also could make you reflect like if something like this happened in times of war, like what would you do if the
yeah,
internet
yeah.
was cut?
Or even a major disaster, a big typhoon,
Yeah,
big earthquake. Yeah,
right.
it happens like that way.
Mm-hmm.
So I think first on the first week, because Maju we have around maybe 12,000 residents there.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't a big it didn't make it to the national headline. But then because people there complained, they couldn't even book a flight ticket. They have no internet connection,
Wow.
and because it's springtime, for Mazu, tourism is very important.
Yes.
They couldn't receive, they just couldn't receive gas. So a lot of people complained. They traveled to Taiwan. They protest in the Congress. So it made the news made to the headline, and then government responded by first. They provided a microwave transmission, like a satellite, big satellite dish, ground satellite dish stations. So people at least they've restored 20 to 25% of previous capacity. So then people could at least connect to the internet. Maybe not browse, maybe not watch YouTube or Netflix.
Yeah. Sure.
It's a broadband internet, right? It's
Yeah.
not going to be like that. But at least they could receive email. They could make
Yeah.
a voice call. It wasn't even possible to make a voice
Wow.
call when it was cut for
I
uh,
see.
maybe yes. So it's really a nightmare for people there because it hasn't happened before. It's the first time.
Right. Right. I don't know if there's been preparations for if that would happen to the main island of Taiwan, what they would do to have continuous or some sort of internet connection. Do you know anything about
Yeah.
that?
So the microwave transmission is one, and people there because they're close enough to China. So some
Hmm.
people were and are buying SIM cards from China
Yes.
because they're close enough. They can receive signal there.
Hmm. Hmm.
I don't think that's the right way to do because it's but in order to survive, right? Survive, just to get connected. Sometimes it's a
Hmm.
very viable option, but at the
Hmm.
same time, maybe speaking from a security perspective, do you really want your internet connection to be routed to China? Not
Yes, that's
really,
my
right?
question that I
No,
had.
true.
What's the
Yeah.
risk with that?
A lot of risk. First, your traffic will be monitored, maybe stored, maybe used against you.
Hmm.
Because that's you're basically trying to connect to the inside of a great firewall, and
Hmm.
then go out to connect the world. So a lot of
Hmm.
things will be filtered. That's
Hmm.
the case. You can't use YouTube anymore.
And I know that you're a founding member of something called the Taiwan Internet Governance Forum. So these are these the sorts of things that this forum discusses and is
Yes, yes.
what you
I
care
think
about? Yeah.
yeah, I think a few years ago because I'm more like a practitioner. I used to be a practitioner or a startup guy, so we work on fixing the internet or web service all the time.
Hmm. Hmm.
But well, at the end of the day, we found that a lot of problems don't really emerge from the lack of technical capacity. It might be because you need to be compliant with certain laws,
Hmm.
and you're not really a lawyer, so you couldn't tell which is the right way to do, which is more risky if you want to enter the market. So then we figured out, oh, we should talk to folks who are decision makers in the government,
Hmm.
lawyers or academics who draft laws. because it brings impact to a lot of people. Like the case of TikTok in the U.S. right now, the discussion is very
Yes.
hot whether you want to ban it in government devices or all together, right? So we needed a platform a few years ago, and a couple of us thought that we should establish a because internet governance is a system inherited from the UN IGF, UN Internet Governance Forum. And because
Okay.
we were not part of the UN system, but we could
Hmm.
do that right away. You don't need to get a certification or
Hmm.
authorization from the UN to work on
Hmm. Hmm.
internet issues because it's your own problem. So we
Sure.
established that association. So it is the one of the definite platforms to discuss about a difficult question concerning internet submarine cables. When issues like this has been discussed years ago,